high atop the Pastoral Center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Talking Catholic. I'm Jen Mauro, and with me today is Mike Walsh. Hey, Mike.
Hi, Jen. How are you?
I was trying to think of something like witty to introduce you with because I know you're about to roast me in a second, but I couldn't come up with anything. So roast
That's
away.
Okay. I'll take care of it. So, folks, you may be noticing that we're once again not in the same room. And we hate doing these episodes on Zoom for the most part, except for when we can bring in people from outside the area and that we wouldn't otherwise be able to get into the podcast studio. But as you might have recalled last week, we did it all over Zoom because Jen had COVID. And now I have COVID, or at least I'm getting over COVID.
These are unrelated. Unrelated.
The only person who says that is you. Everyone else just assumes you gave it to me. Because I can't figure out anybody else I was in contact with that had it prior to me testing positive. So who knows? But it was a lovely experience, honestly. I loved every second of it because I mostly slept for 3 straight days. And it's more relaxation than I've had in forever. Matter of fact, our friend John Kalitz and I, our colleague, he and I have often remarked that we love getting the flu because it gives us 24 hours of not being hassled. Well, this time I got 3 days of not being hassled. And aside from this lingering cough, that's going to probably keep me from talking a lot on today's episode. It was a nice experience. So,
okay, first off, no, I don't believe that was a nice experience. But I will say, as you often, as all of our listeners know, that Mike often talks about his dark black soul. But I will tell you, when he returned to the office yesterday, I think I saw hints of glimmer in the eyes that you were happy to be back. Like you had the mask on, so you couldn't see your face. But I really feel like you were very happy to be back with all of your distinguished colleagues.
Now, Jen, you know the reason why I was giddy yesterday. It had nothing to do with being happy I was back in the warm embrace of my colleagues. It was I was looking forward to antagonizing my colleagues who are still afraid of the virus by walking up to them, regardless of the fact that I had a mask on their face. And sure enough, by the way, our more nervy colleagues, they didn't get within 10 feet of me.
They did
God
not.
bless them. No, they did not.
I do not blame them. It is still a serious problem, Mr. Walsh. So I do not blame him.
It is, but I will.
I saw the sparkle, and I'm counting that as you were happy to be back in our warming break.
Nope. But I was very sad, however, that after 3 years of being able to dodge this thing, I'm no longer a COVID unicorn. I actually took a great deal of pride in that, and that finally got me. But that's all right. But it wasn't bad. I'm all vaxxed up. It was not that big a deal. It really did. It was like the coughing was annoying, but everyone here knows that I work very hard, and oftentimes I'm overworked. And so it was kind of a weird experience to just lay around in bed for 3 days and have nothing expected of me. So I think I may have learned a lesson from that, maybe from time to time to shut off, but I don't know.
Yeah. Did you feel guilty? I always feel guilty when I'm not doing anything. And then I have to remind myself, you're sick. For God's sake, go back to bed.
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, at one point I got so aggravated by laying in bed all day that I went outside and in nothing more than slippers, shorts, and a t-shirt, even though it was 40 degrees outside, I took down the Christmas lights. Yeah, I was like, I'd had it. I was going to go outside and do something, and then I came inside and collapsed because I was so tired.
Well, I am sure that was a treat for your neighbors to witness. So you did a good deed.
No problem. they love me. So, and to our listeners, you're welcome for that imagery. It was great. Yes. Although I will say the other benefit was I lost so much weight during COVID because I had no appetite. So I realize COVID's an important thing. We should not joke about it, but I had the best experience. So thanks.
And you know what? The only reason we're really joking about it is because it is depressing to have. So let's be honest with you.
It is what? What did you
say? Depressing to have. I did not enjoy my COVID experience. And as you would say, I would not recommend it.
No, I don't recommend it to anybody unless you can do it the way I did. So
sleep through.
Yeah, it basically took place over the weekend, and I extended it to Monday and Tuesday, and I was back in the office on Wednesday. But anyway, we're having a little fun with it.
just in time to come back and help us put out the latest edition of the Catholic Star Herald.
Yeah, which was a great one, actually. Now, last week's episode with Father Rocks, we talked about Pope Benedict quite a bit, and he was great. If you didn't listen to that episode, it was a great episode. But this edition of the newspaper, I don't believe it was necessarily intended to be half Pope Benedict, but it kind of worked out that way.
Yeah, we had so many. Well, in addition to OSV coverage, is what's now called our Sunday Visitor. We had Bishop Sullivan wrote a column, and then some of our priests, including Father Rocks, had such wonderful things to say that were very, kind of highlighting what Pope Benedict's legacy was, but also kind of showing us like some other readings of those of us who weren't familiar with his papacy, what we could read and learn from him. So it's good. It's good learning stuff in this content in this next issue of the paper, which comes out on Friday.
Actually,
Friday
Bishop
the 13th.
Sullivan. Oh, look at that! Aren't we lucky? Bishop Sullivan's column. There's the COVID kicking in. Bishop Sullivan's column was very long, but very interesting.
Very interesting.
Very interesting, because it was basically showing how bishops and popes interact, which I don't think most people realize. It's not as, people kind of jokingly say, the pope is the bishop's boss, right? But most bishops don't ever get to meet the pope, and when they do, it's for very brief periods of time. So he kind of related to brief encounters he had with them, and they were fascinating. And even more fascinating than that was how the Pope remembered the first one when he met him for the second one. So it was a great little conversation, a great little sort of retrospective one.
It was also great because, and I don't want to spoil it, everybody go read it on CatholicStarHerald.com or pick up the paper, but there was a great part of when Bishop Sullivan was relating sitting down with the Pope and saying something that when he walked away from the conversation was like kicking himself for saying, so it was very humbling, because I'm like, oh, we all do that, even if you're a bishop, that sometimes you meet somebody that kind of not intimidating, but you say something that you're like, was that silly or was that not silly? And it wasn't, but so that made it was very human. I really enjoyed this column.
Yeah, that's another reason why. Yeah, actually, bishops' columns are usually good because they are very real. That's you don't get the sense oftentimes that you're being preached at as much as being allowed into a conversation.
Sitting down with a friend.
Exactly. So speaking of sitting down with friends, this episode is sitting down with a number of our friends, including one of yours that you've imported from the wonderful Diocese of Trenton, and a couple of ours that we can't keep off the show. And then there's me. But as I'm about to have another coughing attack that I'm attempting to hold down, I'm going to let you handle the introductions. Okay,
sounds good. Well, as Mike alluded to, I'm sure we all know who this next name I'm going to say first is, as you said, she's always on, but I'm always happy when she's on. We have Donna Ottaviano-Britt with us again. She is the Director of Discipleship and Leadership and Secretariat for Pastoral Outreach. Hello, Donna.
Hello, Jen. Nice to be back with you, I have to say. Mike, I can take or leave, but You're always a pleasure.
We also have Anne Marie Hours, who is Administrative Assistant for Pastoral Outreach and works very closely with Donna and a lot of our friends who are usually on. Hello, Anne Marie.
Hi, Jen. How are you today?
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Pleasure to see you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. It's only been about a month.
I know. You were just on when we did our one of our
Advent ones.
Advent, thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
And as Mike said, we have Rachel Hendricks. She is the coordinator of Respect Life Ministries for the Diocese of Trenton. Rachel, so good to see you again.
Thanks so much for having me, Jen and Mike. It's a privilege to be on with you. And I'm feeling like a little bit like when I was in high school and you get that invitation to sit at the cool kids table for lunch, except it's like the Catholic geek version, which is totally a term of endearment. So I think you can relate, right?
Yeah. Actually, as Mike would say, you're not wrong, Rachel. You're not wrong.
But thanks for the invitation.
Well, everybody, we brought some of these powerhouses on today because we're going to talk about pro-life and Respect Life movement, especially with the annual March for Life coming up. And on, I believe it's January 20th. The Diocese of Camden has some events going on. The Diocese of Trenton has some very big events going on as well. And since we have, our speakers today or our guests are very well versed in the Respect Life movement, we thought we would, talk about what life has been like since Roe v. Wade over the summer and what's next in the pro-life movement. So I don't know, Donna or Rachel, would you like to talk a little bit about, what the last few months have been like around our diocese when it comes to the pro-life, Respect Life movement? Mike is shaking his head right now, and I know it's because he said you should pick on one person specifically. Don't let them choose. I'm just going to put that out there right now. So you know what? I'm going to choose. Rachel, since you are at the dork kid table today, why don't you start?
It's the cool kids. It's the cool dorky kids.
All right.
I'm happy to be here. Yeah. So, it's been a really interesting year, I think, for sure. I kind of was fully expecting Dobbs to be in favor of overturning Roe. And, since the opening arguments, which were not this past, but December 1st, 2021. So, waiting till the session was finished for the Supreme Court and that ruling to come down, I was fully counting on it and talking to other people. And, other people were kind of like, oh, it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. Yeah, sure, Roe's going to get overturned. I don't think so. I'm like, no, it's really going to happen. But at that moment it happened, I was taken by surprise somehow. And I think a lot of people were the reality of it set in. But then the second kind of layer of the reality is what now, especially in a state like New Jersey, where the abortion climate is worsening in terms of our pro-life perspective, of course. And we're seeing abortion expanding even further from last January 13th, actually, is the first anniversary of the legislation in New Jersey that truly codified the right to an abortion in New Jersey state law. Of course, New Jersey, it has always had abortion legal through all 9 months of pregnancy. We are one of the least restrictive states in the country. But, they took that further step in January. Our state government saw that they really wanted to codify in state law the right to an abortion in anticipation of the overturn of Roe, kind of setting things up. So once Roe was overturned, our government, unfortunately, New Jersey was quick to act again to make more moves to make New Jersey a sanctuary state for abortion for those women who are out of states like Florida and these other states that over the summer enacted more restrictive legislation for abortion. So, Governor Murphy, sadly, was really offering an open invitation for women to come here to have their abortions, especially those later term abortions, and put in protections for doctors and people who are traveling across state lines to receive these abortions, even though they're from states where abortion is restricted. So, I think there's a lot of restructuring we need to do in our mindset. We've been so focused on Roe, and we really need to rethink how we're acting, especially in a state like New Jersey that is so abortion permissive. And what we can do, obviously, legislative and advocacy efforts are always important. Ultimately, our goal is to have full protection of the unborn. But there are things that we're going to need to do, in my view, that allow us to find common ground with people that we may not fully agree with on the abortion issue. So we have to find common ground in order to make some changes. I'm talking just at the legislative level, to put in protections for moms who are pregnant, moms that are women who are experiencing intimate partner violence, low-income moms who need income support if they're going to have a chance to choose life for their child. So there's areas of common ground that we need to find and work with. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to work with pro-choice people, but if they're truly pro-choice, oftentimes they do support the moms in poverty, people in poverty, and trying to lift them out of it. And then from the other perspective, many pro-life folks often are against some of that kind of social safety net stuff. But we have to find a way to work together in order to create an environment that really allows the mom to choose life. And then, we can talk later about like more on a pastoral level, the different approach or the more broadening approach that we need to take in our pro-life ministry work as well.
Donna, are you seeing or feeling those same kind of vibes here in the Diocese of Camden, especially with, some of the Respect Life advocates that we have in our parishes?
Yeah, I think if you look across it's probably the same in all the dioceses, but I mean, we have a very active pro-life ministry teams actually from most of our parishes. It's pretty active. And I think that there's been a real shift from kind of what Rachel is saying is like the shift from, okay, we're advocating for the protections for the unborn, but we have to make it we have to make the changes so that we actually can help a woman, help a mom and dad even, right? We always have a tendency to talk about the mom in these situations, but to help the mom and dad, especially those that are in deep poverty, to be able to make the decision, I can keep my baby, right? And that's really, I think, a lot of the work that I see, right? So here in South Jersey, we have the South Jersey Women's Center, which a lot of our pro-life folks actually volunteer at the South Jersey Women's Center. And they're very dedicated to putting resources in place to actually help women make this decision. It is a hard decision for women that are very poor, is to keep their babies. So I think we're seeing a shift in that direction as to what is Rachel used that term, safety net, like what's the safety net to protect the family, to protect the baby, to allow the baby to be born. So they are, I would say, quite the rock stars, the ones that I've met. They are dedicated. They're out. They're working. They're raising money. They've got, they're getting supplies. They're looking for housing. They're trying to help with education and jobs. So they really do work tirelessly. And I will give a nod to the Knights. The Knights are awesome. The Knights of Columbus they too are in partnership, and the effort is tireless for them too. They're very dedicated.
Now, Rachel, you kind of alluded to this already. Last January, I remember going to the Rally for Life outside Trenton State House, and a lot of the people there that I was meeting from actually all of across the state of New Jersey, what they were already talking about was state legislation because, in anticipation of what was going to happen later with the Supreme Court. So I know that Rachel and Donna and Mike, almost everybody on this call does a lot of work with the NJCC, the New Jersey Catholic Conference, which is the legislative arm of the state's bishops. Is there a way that if you're listening to this podcast or just a person that you can help advocate? Does NJCC have any way to make your voices heard with our state legislators?
Yeah, I'll chime in. So if you visit their website, which I think is njcatholic.com, certainly if you Google New Jersey Catholic Conference, you'll find their website for sure. Right on their homepage is a place I believe it's a green button that says take action, and you can go there and sign up for their action alerts. So they have a mechanism by which when there's legislation or something that's really important for people to know about and voice their either support for or opposition for, there's you would, if you sign up for those alerts, you'd get an immediate email or text that would allow you to engage in some of that advocacy that's going to be 100% in line with the teachings of the church, and therefore, really supporting human flourishing in all aspects of, across the whole age span.
And just to confirm, it is njcatholic.org, where by the way, you can also find a number of videos featuring Rachel Hendricks, where she and some of the members of the NJCC talk about this very subject. I was able to watch a few of them a few months ago, and they're outstanding. Our folks are very knowledgeable.
Yeah, I just a kind of a shout out to Jim King and John Hardiman over at the New Jersey Catholic Conference. I think they're doing a lot of great things to help improve the awareness of their outreach, the work that they do, and the help that they are willing to have and support from the people of New Jersey, the Catholics and people of goodwill, in supporting the efforts of our Catholic bishops, and especially all this legislative and advocacy issues that we need to be engaged with as faithful citizens.
I do want to go back and talk about the NJCC, but before we get there, Donna, you were talking about, meeting a lot of those people on the ground who are doing the good work, including the Knights of Columbus. Anne-Marie, is that something that you have seen in your travels around the diocese and the groups that you're involved with? Is there a wide age group when it comes to who's involved in the Respect Life ministries and how more people can get involved?
Absolutely. There's so many different people involved, and some people who you wouldn't necessarily think who would, like, if you encounter them on the street, you wouldn't necessarily say they were like pro-life at first, but like you see different people throughout the diocese and the state too. And the Knights of Columbus are so wonderful to the pro-life community because they sponsor our buses down to the March for Life. And so they actually call us up typically and like let us know, hey, this is where we're going. And they give us all the information that we need so we can help them with that. And so we can help fill the buses. But we also had United for Life over the summer in our diocese where we had over 100 people gather down at Our Lady of Sorrows in Linwood to just like bring back our pro-life community as the office has been empty, just to bring them back together and at post-COVID and everything. And everyone had a wonderful time being able to meet each other from different parishes and to connect that way too.
And again, I mentioned the age group. Is there a push to get, a younger generation involved, or are there younger generations involved?
The younger generation is involved, but not as involved as some of the older generations, mostly because of work commitments, family commitments that they still have to be there. But there is a presence of the younger generation. It's just not necessarily as visible, but they are there. They're just working on other aspects, whether they're with like helping mothers with their kids, like they're doing the pro-life ministry in a different way that fits their needs of the generation they're in at the time.
Gotcha. Rachel, is that something you've seen in the Diocese of Trenton as well?
Yeah, I think we have a really big opportunity right now with Roe being overturned and, all of this change in abortion climate here, negatively in New Jersey. But I think that there's a real opportunity to engage particularly the youth and young adult. So many youth and young adult, like their heart is in service. They want to help people, right? And that really appeals to them. And why does it appeal to them? It appeals to them because that's imprinted in our hearts, right? We should be caring for our neighbors. But then we get kind of clouded by skepticism and politics and this binary of left and right. And, what conversations are going on in your home with your mom and dad? What side are they on? What side are we on? And I think that's a real opportunity for us to draw in the youth, whether they're Catholic or not. Particularly in our Catholic schools where we have a diverse community of people, and certainly in the college communities and other young adults, to engage them at the point where, like, again, even if they can't fully grasp the kind of total vision that we have of human dignity and for the complete sacredness of human life from the moment of conception, that can be a hard concept for people growing up in our culture to understand how we can feel this way and what about the mom. But if we can find the common ground that we all want human flourishing, we want to help these poor women. There's an imbalance between male and female in the way our bodies are made. There's like a kind of an asymmetry, to use it. There's an awesome Catholic legal analyst named Erica Bacchiacchi, who's spoken really clearly about this asymmetry that exists between male and female, and our bodies are different. Okay. And we have different vulnerabilities. And so the female body has this vulnerability, which it can be seen as a vulnerability, but good grief, it's an incredible gift that our bodies are able to contain and nurture life from its very beginning, right? Our bodies as women, from the moment of conception, our bodies start mothering a child. What an incredible gift. But it is a vulnerability too in the context of what our sexual culture is like, right? In a contraceptive culture. So, if we can understand where our youth is coming from in sometimes their inability to accept the totality of a pro-life vision, and reach that common ground and meet them there and start the discussions on like, why are women so vulnerable? What about intimate partner violence? What about the sexual culture? Like, engage them in those conversations and really bring it down to, like, again, the dignity of every human person, and also just increase the awareness of, the violence is involved in any abortion procedure, whether it's an early abortion through medication or the later term abortions, which are more evidently violent, more broadly seen as a violent procedure. But I think most youth and young adult are for nonviolence. They want to find nonviolent solutions to help people. And if we engage on that level in a way that we see the common ground we have right now and open up a dialogue and end the whole left-right political kind of, overshadowing in these conversations, I think that's what we're called to do. I think that's what we're really called to do.
It's a very truthful movement. Yeah, there's no way to emotionally affect the argument, because in a lot of ways it's very cut and dry. We know when life begins scientifically. We know when life ends scientifically. We understand the science behind all of it. Where things become perverted is when emotion is added to it later on that isn't necessarily an honest representation of the real world. And we've gotten great over the last 50 years since Roe v. Wade of creating all of these sort of emotional attachments that can blind us from the truths. We know what life is and when it begins and how it needs to be protected and what we need to protect it and what's required to foster it. And so all these other entities come forward and they confuse the situation and they make things difficult. But one of the things that, during COVID times was so difficult for me was not being able to go to the March for Life. And one of the reasons that I love the March for Life, in addition to my appreciation for the city of Washington, D.C., not necessarily the people who work there, but the people who, but the structures and the history and things like that, was when you go to the march, it is filled with young people. I would say it's predominantly young people from all over the United States and who genuinely believe in the sanctity of life and the protection of women, which is the key to all of this. And there's become this I hate to use the word again, but this perversion that because women have this capability that they are somehow lesser, and that by protecting that entity that they're able to generate with the help of a man, and then foster forward and become a human being, somehow that's we shouldn't be focusing on that. We need to forget that entity even exists, and we just need to look at the woman as an isolated person. But nothing in science operates that way. You don't even have to get into religion in this case. Nothing in science. There's no part of our world that is in and of itself an entity by a silo all to itself. Everything intersects with everything else. So you cannot have a child without a woman. That woman must be protected. That child must be protected. The man must be a part of that relationship. These are all truths that have been evident in the world for thousands of years. And all we do is make up stories to trick us. Now, I did warn Jen that I'm currently suffering from COVID, and I may go on a rant at some point, and I can't guarantee that any of it is going to make sense. And it's her job to stop me if I go off the rails. So as I'm thinking back to what I just said, none of that may have made any sense.
Don't negate it, Mike. It made sense because
Okay.
every single person here is nodding in agreement.
Okay.
Anybody want to talk about, respond, or chime in on what Mike just said? Because you're all nodding.
Yeah, so I'll chime in, if I may, in the cool kids table here.
Right.
I think that we all kind of realize that we're going through yet another period of kind of Gnosticism in our culture, where where we're seeing people view this tension between the spirit and the flesh, right? So Gnosticism is one of the most stubborn heresies that's kind of come about since, 2000 years ago. And we're embodied spirits, right? We're not a spirit that has this, this thing, this body that doesn't really matter. And we're not a body that has this like spirit that's just a figmentation of the mind. We're embodied spirits. And our culture tries to separate that. It tries to separate either over spiritualizing ourselves, whereas the body in the material world means nothing. We can change it, we can twist it, we can alter it according to what our mind is thinking, or that the body is everything and spirituality is like nothing. So the body in the here and now and the materialism, like that's all that matters. So you see this division in how we think about things. And, as Mike kind of referred to, this like expressive individualism, we're seeing this like autonomy is our new god of our culture, right? Aside from politics, I think politics and autonomy, we're kind of like all bowing down and praising that, forgetting that like we're created as relational beings, right? We're relational in every way. Why? Because we're created by a relational God who is a community of persons, right? We are called to live in community. When we don't, everything starts to fall apart. We fold into ourselves. We forget that we're part of a community in our homes. We just went through Christmas, right? And the Holy Family. I mean, that's just that community of persons is so reflective of God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit that proceeds from the love between the two, right? So it's mirrored so beautifully in marriage and what God's plan was for us as men and women. So now I don't even have COVID, but I may be going off on a rant here, Mike. So I'm just kind of, taking your lead a little bit. So Jen, just give me the cutoff signal. But I really see that we have such a need to return to how we were created. What are we created for? How are we reflected in the image and likeness of God as people who are created to be relational, not to be autonomous. We don't exist as atomized little beings in the world. Everything we do has an impact on the people around us and on our broader culture. We're starting to see the downfall, the bad effects of this kind of autonomous view of ourselves through not only abortion culture, but, through this gender ideology culture that's building up, and families just not being as interconnected. We're all busy in our own world. We all think we all have our own calling and all on our own vocation. And sometimes we detach that from our own parents, kids, and so to reconnect and see that the people right in front of us deserve our love and attention, and that we're deserving too of their love and attention. It goes both ways, and it comes from our Creator.
Rant. We welcome all rants on Talking Catholic, so thank you for that. I appreciate that. Matter of fact, I personally would like Donna to rant a little more often. She always comes across as very polished and professional. It makes the rest of us look bad.
Are you saying I'm not polished and professional? Wait a second.
No.
Oh, that's good, Mike.
No. See, that's different. See, people think people want listeners. Damn.
Exactly.
Edit. Mike, this would be that moment where I'm like, rein it in.
No. I'm leaving it in. I'm leaving that in there. I have this theory that people prefer those who talk from their soul. They're passionate, as opposed to people who are entirely too polished, and that sometimes when you sound very polished, people just tune you out. I'm not saying that people tune Donna out. I tune Donna out. Other people listen to her. And
nobody tunes Donna out. I've been in the crowd. It is a rapt audience.
One person tunes Donna out.
Oh,
sorry.
That would just be Mike Walsh. But I love Jen Mauro. So that's very nice. But to tag along to what Rachel has just articulated really so beautifully, this whole idea that our Creator has just loved us into being, and that long before the world was created, He knew when we would be born. He planned for us to be born now. I know everything looks problematic in the church. This whole fight, that we're in is to protect the unborn and protect the moms and the dads who think that this is their only choice. he destined them to be here now. And even Rachel, what you talked about in terms of, this whole idea of personal vocation, each of us has one. Each of us is called to holiness. Each of us is called to a particular state in life. And each of us is called into the work of the kingdom today, right now. And so it's not disconnected from one another, right? So we're supposed to be fully reliant on Jesus Christ, but yet we are interconnected. We need to depend on each other while we all depend on him. And I think that's sort of the story that I think from an evangelization proclamation type of a message that we have for the world, that we're here to help you. And I think part of the struggle, is the accusation is that, well, those Catholics or those pro-lifers, period, there's plenty of people that join Catholics in this fight, is that, well, you're just pro-birthers. You just want them to be born and then you're gone. It's so not true. I see so much remarkable, beautiful work just here in the diocese, right? So our Life and Justice office has been vacant for quite a while. So trying to do my best to support the pro-life and justice ministries across the diocese. These people are so committed. I mean, there is fire. There is fire in their hearts. There's fire in their bellies, and they believe in saving these souls because God loved them into being, just like He loved us into being, and we get a chance to be here. So I just think there's a message here, and also something else Rachel said around sort of those being able to build those bridges to others, right? There are people that are pro-choice. If there's alignment, we can find it. If we're willing to engage in those conversations and be brave and be bold, but also to find the places where we can find common ground and work together. Kind of like Sisyphus up a hill, but I think there's places that we can partner with those. I think there's a wide swath of people that care very much about this issue. We can find the places. And I think we're going to have to do it now at the state level. You articulated everything that New Jersey is that we wish it wasn't. So that's the work in front of us.
That our pro-life community, during the COVID times when everything was kind of shut down or when people weren't meeting and stuff like that, I get the sense that the pro-life group was the one group that did not seem to lose any fire and any energy. They came out like gangbusters again when sort of restrictions were lifted. They are very self-motivating in terms of, if perhaps I forget in my role as communications director to put something out, they come at me with fire and gusto and remind me of my responsibilities as communications director. And I appreciate that for them. They are. And when stuff happens in the church, most of the phone calls that I get, if they haven't heard something from a bishop yet, it's something related to the pro-life movement. And they will get your bishop on this, and we need a statement quickly. And we need his perspective in support of our work. And the bishops always jump on it, and certainly they're like that. But they come to us. That's the point, is that they are self-motivated. And I do think that the March for Life aside, I do think that it is a far younger movement than people realize. I had the benefit of spending a lot of time with our Catholic campus ministries at the college level. And, every single one of them is a dyed-in-the-wool pro-lifer and understand. And these are predominantly young women, and they absolutely have a deep respect and devotion to the pro-life movement. And then you go into our high schools, which I've had the benefit of spending a lot of time there as well. And it's the same thing. Our high schools are a great training ground for people to understand the pro-life movement. And the reason why we believe, which is not what some people will say, that we hate women and we want to be restrictive of women, but that we love women and it's our job to protect women and empower women and encourage women. But those are only things you're going to hear in Catholic churches, Catholic schools, Catholic ministries, and certainly other places as well, but predominantly in our area, that's where you're going to hear them, because in the state of New Jersey, you're not going to hear that anyplace else, which is disappointing.
And
yeah,
I think
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Donna.
The one thing I would add to that, like all of our high schools have pro-life clubs, where there's a dedicated group of students, right? So how do we sort of help them intersect, right? So even as Anne Marie was referencing earlier, right? It depends on where they are. It depends where they are sort of in their life cycle. If they're young, they have classes, they're going to school, how can they contribute? And I think they're very active. And so, they can't all like hop a bus or get in a car and go up to Trenton. So I'm going to tell a story. So Jen, I think you were relatively new and you were going to the big protest up in Trenton, right? You were only here a couple of months.
Oh, yeah.
So Jen is texting me. She's like, where are people? I'm like, let me find out where they are. And I'm like texting them because I know they're there. Yeah. I'm like, okay, Jen Mauro is looking for you. So it took some maneuvering and sharing of phone numbers, because they were there. Like, this is what they do. Because I think part of it is kind of what we talk about is like the 2 feet of justice. There's the loving and there's the advocating. Right. There's the do for them to help them. So, right. Rachel uses that phrase, safety net. What do we do for them to help them have their babies? But how do we fight for them in terms of policy changes? What are the ways that we can advocate? Look, I'm all about prayer for this, right? No one prayed more in the Bible than Jesus. So, a lot of prayer has to go into this, but our action has to be partnered with it. And there needs to be more of us. And the fact that I think there are 140 seats up for grabs in the next election in the state of New Jersey should be a big call out to Catholics who have ever entertained the idea of politics. Go now.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. That's a great segue into kind of looping back around to the NJCC and Walking with Moms in Need. Everybody here, we were all just talking about, that there's a misconception that, as soon as the baby's born, we don't care anymore. At least in the Catholic Church, that is absolutely not true. For forever, we, tried, like you said, the Knights of Columbus and our parishioners are they're but right there with them trying to help. But Rachel, you've been doing some one-on-one work with NJCC for Walking with Moms in Need, which is a USCCB initiative, if I remember correctly. Can you explain a little bit about what that is and how it's being rolled out across the diocese and state?
Yeah, sure. So Walking with Moms in Need was an initiative that was first meant to roll out Feast of the Annunciation, March 25th, 2020. So we all knew what happened about 12 days prior to that. So the Walking with Moms in Need, during the COVID crisis, and while we were all kind of hunkered down at home for a period of time, got put off. But you know what? I see God's hand in this, because we as pro-life directors and leaders in parish communities had a chance to kind of digest what the USCCB wanted to encourage through Walking with Moms in Need. And, if there were ever a better time or place for this to be enacted, this initiative of Walking with Moms in Need, it's over the past year for sure. So the focus of Walking with Moms in Need, as the USCCB describes it, it's not another program. It's not a call to start another ministry, perhaps, in your parish, but it's an initiative to get parishes thinking about what do we have available? What do we really offer in terms of real support for girls and women and families right in our own communities, right in the neighborhood communities, a parish initiative that would help when families are struggling with any issue, but certainly in the abortion culture in New Jersey, certainly when there's either an unexpected pregnancy or a difficult pregnancy. Could be a poor prenatal diagnosis, could be mom is sick, could be they're housing insecure, could be the family's already poor, could be that someone is being threatened that if you get pregnant, you are out of here. Like, what in the parish neighborhood level do we really offer? And the Catholic Church does offer a lot, but I'll say we do have a ways to go. In the state of New Jersey, crisis pregnancy centers have helped thousands of people, women and families and babies. Many of them were not abortion vulnerable, but part of the reason they were not perhaps abortion vulnerable is because they knew that there was a place for them to go, right? And then we also know that they do help and assist abortion vulnerable women as well. But when you think of the sheer numbers, so in the state of New Jersey, there's no requirement to report numbers of abortions from any of our clinics, right? So it's all a big guess. So the Guttmacher Institute, which is a research arm of Planned Parenthood, their numbers, their most recent numbers, I think it was 2018 numbers for the state of New Jersey, 48,000 abortions in that year. Okay, so our pregnancy health centers help thousands, but we want to make abortion unthinkable. These are large numbers, and we have to help them. We have to help women and families at the very local level. So Walking with Moms empowers the local parish to take a look, what's around me that would help? Is there a counseling center that could help? Do we have a pastoral associate who's skilled or trained in social work and counseling themselves to maybe have an initial conversation with someone who's like, in crisis at the even thought that she might be pregnant? How can we offer over-the-counter pregnancy tests, perhaps in our food pantries, and have like maybe a mother-baby corner or area in our local St. Vincent de Paul conference, or our food pantry, or any kind of outreach we have to the local community? What are those real practical things that we can offer to pull people into the help that they really need, the holistic help that the church can provide? And then if a parish were to do like a local inventory about, what's available right in our area, then they can maybe find the gaps. What's not available in our local area? What would I say? And I've had pastors very humbly say to me when we're talking about Walking with Moms, they're like, you know what? I just got reassigned to this area. I've been here for 6 months. I have no idea where I would send a pregnant woman in need. Like, I just don't know. So to assist parishes in kind of the first step for this, in the Diocese of Trenton, we've collected some information about the Christian and Catholic kind of linked resources and pregnancy centers, put them on a large, beautiful poster with room for parishes to add their own local information. And that's, something that can be hung up in any of our parish buildings, or even, town buildings, Christian churches, or even if you have, business owners in your town that would be willing to hang it up, just to kind of create an awareness. We have resources right here, and your local Catholic church is here to help you if you think you're in need. What we found is also that we have so many churches that have structures already in place, like food pantries, like St. Vincent de Paul Society chapters, like those social concerns ministries that we have already in place to help people in need. Sometimes we need to bridge the gap between the pro-life folks, where we're so focused on the mom who may be pregnant, and the social concerns folks. When I've entered into discussions with these people, they're saying like, why didn't we think of this? We have people in our neighborhoods, kids in our high schools, women, in our communities that might be in these situations, but we don't recognize them necessarily as the neighbors that we're creating awareness to, that they can come here for help when they're in these kind of unique circumstances. So partnering together with kind of what we consider the pro-life folks, together with the social concerns folks, we really we want to see a broadening of the meaning of pro-life, right? And that term kind of gets a little politically there's a little political undercurrent to that. So really in the Diocese of Trenton, we're looking to broaden what we recognize as the work of the whole church to build a culture of life that encompasses the life of the entire church. And how can we interconnect the work that we do? And in areas where there might not be full agreement on certain issues, we can certainly work together to advance the assistance we provide at the local level in our neighborhoods.
I know that I've in our reporting in the Catholic Star Herald, I know some of our parishes work with moms and Walking with Moms in Need as well. So I would say that anybody listening to this podcast, no matter what church, no matter what diocese, no matter what state you're in, reach out to your local parish and find out what's available if you need help and how you can be part of helping.
And I'll just add real quick, anybody that's hearing this and thinking like, well, maybe we need this in my community. If they go to walkingwithmoms.com, that's a dedicated website that the USCCB has put together. I will say, just as just don't get overwhelmed by the enormity of content that's there. Focus in on just the gist of the initiative. And one of the tools I found really helpful on that page was a parish inventory. It's kind of like just a grid where you can write down, what do we even have around here? Explore the different types of assistance you might be looking for when you want to assist a family or a woman in need. And start there. It doesn't need to be a gigantic ministry. You can start with one person who's just interested to find out, where would a woman go to get a free pregnancy test? Does she need transportation to get to the closest birthright or pregnancy care center? Things like that. Real practical things. You can start super, super small and just pray and be led by the Spirit in the way it has to go.
That's absolutely right. You can be supportive in any way. I tell people that there's a lot of be not afraid in the to be a pro-lifer, and because it's the pro-life movement is very much, I would say, considered, probably not in truth, but considered a counterculture movement, and I think we can accept that. We are counterculture, but here's the thing about counterculture: people love counterculture. And they will oftentimes gravitate to it because it is a little different. But they don't know where to go sometimes. So be obvious, It's okay you don't have to make a show out of yourselves, but you can let people know that you're pro-life. You help the movement by saying that. You don't have to be a fire and brimstone pro-lifer. You can just be a public pro-lifer and go along with your business. And, if someone asks you about it, go, oh yeah, absolutely. Cradle to grave. That's me. Or conception. Wait, I always say cradle to grave, but that's not right. That's Catholics. Catholics are cradle to grave.
Womb to tomb.
Womb to tomb. Right. Pro-life is womb to tomb. But it's true, and you don't have to get in a fight with someone about it. Just let people know that you exist. And that sometimes is all it takes to let people know that the movement is still alive. And if you're a young person, there's this theory out there that some people want you to believe that in 10 or 20 years, the pro-life movement will die out because everybody who's a pro-lifer has gray hair. Well, as we've already stated several times on this podcast, that is not the case. We may all have gray hair on this podcast, but actually, I'm not sure. I don't think Anne Marie has gray hair. She's still pretty young.
No, Anne Marie does not.
But she is a representative of those young people I keep talking about, and there's plenty of them out there, and they will replace us, and that's a good thing. But don't be afraid of being public. And I've been saying this a lot lately. Don't be afraid to run for office. I feel like we are not getting the cream of the crop in the political world of the last 10, 15 years. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that people are sort of turned off of running for government office. And so a lot of good people just start running because it's a nightmare to run for office. But we need good people to run. And if you're a person of conscience, consider it. Consider whether or not you have the calling to do something like that. Maybe someone will have to ask you. I mean, we talk about all the time with vocations and the priesthood. Sometimes you got to ask a young man if he wants to be a priest. Well, if you know someone in your life who would make a great candidate for office and is a good moral center and wouldn't be afraid of, publicly announcing to the world how we need to protect each other and care for each other, encourage that person to run for office. So AJ Me, by the way, I'm encouraging you to run for state senate. So if you can get on that, I'd be awfully happy. I'll be your chief of staff. Don't worry about it.
Oh, geez. Well, we're almost running out of time, but I don't want this to end before we either have Donna or Anne Marie talk about what we have available in the Diocese of Camden before the March for Life and Trenton as well. So can both dioceses really quick just pitch what's coming up in case anybody wants to participate? In addition,
Anne Marie, you first.
Yeah, Anne Marie.
Well, we have the buses coming up for going down to DC for the March for Life. There's buses from Atlantic County, Cape May County, and Cumberland County. There's buses up in Camden from around the White Horse Pike in Haddon Heights and Kings Highway, and from Our Lady of Hope. And we have a bus going out of Incarnation Parish, and all this information will be in the Star Herald this week.
Thank you. And what else is coming up?
So the one thing I would add to that is we are having a Spanish Holy Hour at Divine Mercy, and that will be on the 19th, so the night before the March. There'll be Mass at 7, Holy Hour at 8. So I encourage everyone to come and to do that and to pray, maybe participate in Mass and the Eucharist and to pray.
And
Great.
that's Divine Mercy Parish in Vineland, and that's
Yes.
going to be, and that's Spanish language, right?
Yeah, Spanish language, holy hour.
Okay.
And Rachel in the Diocese of Trenton?
The Diocese of Trenton on January 20th, the same day as the march, we are going to be gathering together a large Catholic community and people of goodwill who want to stand in solidarity and prayer with Bishop O'Connell at the Co-Cathedral of St. Robert Bellarmine in Freehold. Bishop will be celebrating a Mass for Life at 11 a.m. And we look forward to packing the cathedral. It holds over 1,100 people. And can you even imagine? I don't know, word on the street is it's going to be packed. So we want to see everyone there, pro-lifers, people with social concerns, anyone that cares for human dignity and life at any age or stage. We want you there. Let's stand together and pray and hope for the future of our state and our nation.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for being on the podcast. Rachel, Donna, Anne-Marie, thank you. And Mike, I hope you feel better soon. Mike, you want to take us out?
See you, everybody. Have a great week.